Hi everyone, welcome again to another Candace's Corner. Today we're going to talk about self-determination and being in charge of your life. My name is Candace Cunningham. I work at the Institute for Human Development at UMKC and you said, University Center on Developmental Disabilities. I have lived experience in cerebral palsy, and developmental disabilities. Um, our vision at IHC is we envision a world where people live, work, and play in their children's communities throughout their life course. Sorry. Um, so Candace's corner is under the reset at the USET, which the reset is a speakable training and technical center assistance center for people with lived experience and developmental disabilities. Candace's Corner is a podcast series where leaders from across the state talk about key issues affecting people in the disability communities. So today I am talking with Ben Edwards about self-determination. Ben Edwards works at Kansas University Center on Disabilities. He is an assistant researcher. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Candace.
So, what Ben will talk about is what is self-determination, the different components of self-determination, and how self-determination can be used in a personal and professional life. So, Ben, could you tell me a little about where you work at?
Yeah, like you said, I work at the Kansas University Center on Disabilities. So we have like a very strong focus on research, and that research often encompasses life outcomes and success predictors of people who have disabilities, whether they be autistic people, whether they be, and a lot of times it's people with other disabilities. Our focus is very, very broad in some ways, but we are very much focused on kind of like the just the day-to-day life and the outcomes of people with disabilities and their families. And what we do is we do a lot of studies, we work with a lot of schools, we work out in the community, and so I kind of get to be a part of a lot of the different action that goes on at KUCD.
Awesome. And I forgot to mention, Ben and I worked together I don't know how many years ago, so we got to work together.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to see you again, even if it's only on via online, even if it's virtual, it's still great to get to see how you're doing and all that.
Same here, yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Ben, what kind of project do you work on?
Well, I work on a lot of projects that are connect some of them are like connected to studies. Some of them might be like kind of some of them might have to do with media we can put out into the public to increase KUCD's visibility. Um, some of them are more centered with partnerships in the community. Some of them are um, centered on partnerships with schools. Um, So I guess I've worked with, a ton of different projects since I started here. A lot of it involves talking to, it involves training people in our self-determined learning model of instruction, where we really try to impress some of the impress upon people some of the principles of self-determination and how they can apply it to their lives.
Awesome. So you just brought me to my next question. What is self-determination?
There are a lot of, I can best describe it in some of the short definitions that we use in a lot of our work at KUCD. Being in charge, or being in the driver's seat of your own life, or the CEO of your learning. So, so self-determination doesn't mean, and it shouldn't mean, that anyone can that anyone does anything entirely on their own. There are there are people like our friends, our significant others, our family, or in my case, my cat, who are always kind of, by our side and kind of with us in the thick of things, or at least in my cat's case, he thinks he's kind of, I definitely, I mean, he's such good emotional support. And then, I do nothing at KUCD alone, and in many of the things I pursue outside of KUCD, I'm certainly not, um this isolated automaton who's just, putting out just producing things or getting things done like I'm on this planet of one person. There are always people with me, and that's kind of what self-determination is about. But you can use that to help you decide where you want to go in life, where you want to be, where you want to live, how you spend your days, whether you want to join some sort of religious community, or what you want to do in just kind of, just how you choose to be in this world and contribute to other people too.
Yeah, and I heard you said it could be a person or it could be an animal or a pet, So yeah, and it so um what how can someone use self determination in their personal life?
So self-determination, um so it has, when people are using SDLMI, for instance, there's a lot of questions that help people to sort of help people to sort of orient themselves around accomplishing a goal. People ask things like, "What are my barriers? What are my supports?" People ask themselves like, what needs to change about my environment or my skills? So I've certainly used self determination. I think I've used it to sort of, um, I guess I've used it to help me do things like sleep better, take care of myself. I've used it to, pursue. I've used it to pursue creative pursuits. Like, I like to make a lot of arts and crafts. So I ask myself, what's in my way, and what can I do to overcome my barriers? What are my resources? There's just a lot a person can accomplish, I think, by asking questions of that we offer in SDLMI. And you don't have to go through, like, you don't have to go through anything super formalized to get the benefits of SDLMI or self determination. It's not like there's it's not like you have to enroll in some kind of thing and come to class at a certain time or something. It can SDLMI can really be done, or self determination can. It's all about the person and how how they can implement it in their own life. So
So,
yeah.
and then how? So we kind of talk about your personal, like how person can use it in their personal life, but how can a person use it in their professional life? Or would it be different?
I guess I can't think of any real significant differences. I would say a lot of the similarities are pretty salient. Like, a person, you know, uh, a person can often, count on other people in their workplace to sort of use self determination to get work done, and they can be that help too. What I mean, I'm still learning about how setting smaller goals as part of an accomplishment of larger goals can help when I have really big tasks. I'm working on a like if I'm working on a really big spreadsheet, and I can ask myself, how much can I get done in an hour, in 2 hours, in a day? And then I can sort of set myself to see if I can finish it during a deadline of maybe a month or a week or whatever. And I think that's similar to how people can use it in their personal lives too. If people set goals, that's kind of the key thing. Oh, and goals, we talk about short-term and long-term goals, and a long-term goal is I'm not trying to uh well, a long-term goal can be like maybe, some of the people we've taught in SDLMI might say, "Oh, I want to get out into space." And it's like, okay, well, see what kind of skill, and self determination is all about seeing what sort of skills you can build along the way. And it's very much about a process and not so much about accomplishing a goal. I think I should make about not so much about whether you strictly did or did not accomplish a big goal.
I like that. I like that. Seeing what you learn along the way of
Yeah.
accomplishment. I love that. Um, does self determination look the same across the lifespan?
That's a good question. I think I think the more people practice self-determination, the more they really start to understand its principles and its nuances. And I think the earlier people can, you know, get acquainted with the ideas of self-determination, the fact that get acquainted with the idea that somewhere down the line, no one's going to tell you where you're going to be living. No one's going to tell you how you keep your room or what meals you eat for what meals of the day you happen to be eating. Um, um, I think the sooner I think I happen to learn self determination or at least the ideas of it at a fairly young age. I was really encouraged to go to college, but there was definitely a lot of accommodations around my needs and things like transportation situation. I it's not like, if I it wasn't as if like if I chose to, you know, try to make it out on my own in some low paying job, I would that choice wouldn't have been respected, but I think I was definitely given a lot of tools at a young age to help me make decisions in my life, and so I think self determination can definitely be adapted to different situations and different stages of the life course. But I think as kind of like a fact of life, it's going to be there regardless of how old you are or how or where you're living and what kind of job situation you're in.
And you probably won't notice that it's still until you think back on it. It's like, oh yeah, that was something,
Right, right, right.
Um, so Ben, how does the self-determination relate to the disability movement?
That's a good question. I think when people with disabilities at some point we started to realize, we started to really think about the fact that we were not self-determined, that people were making all sorts of decisions for us which should never in a person's lifetime be made by other people. I mean, I could go on all day about what some of those decisions were, and you know them just as well as I do. But we were always kind of like, um, a lot of us, lived lives well into our adult years where people were taught, where we lived in institutions and we were taught go to bed at a certain time, you know, eat this for each of the meals you eat for a day. And basically, it was like our lives were so often controlled. And I think it was for some people out of this idea that it would give us some sort of security. And we were finding that we were having neither freedom to live our lives nor security. And we just kind of decided that like every other person in this world, we have to choose how we live our life, and we have to choose what is best, and we have to choose to also be the um person who reaps the rewards and bears the consequences of our decisions. And we realized that self-determination was kind of this benchmark of getting down, of really living the life that I think a disability rights movement or any civil rights movement is there to accomplish in the first place.
I like that. I like that. Um, is there? That's all I had. Is there anything else you want to talk about around self-determination?
Um, well, I can, I guess I can't think of anything like, I mean, I guess nothing really comes to mind right now. I can tell you, it's never too late to start learning self determination. Um, there are always, you can always look around you to find people who can be, your resources, your teachers. And I think, it applies to you whether you have a disability or don't have a disability, because at the end of the day, what's right for me is not going to be right for you. What makes one person live a happy, fulfilled life is not going to do the same thing to another person. And so, you know, once we start really deciding to be as, in control of different variables of our lives as we can, then we start to then we start to do what has was been demonstrated by research, and that is um, that self-determined people have better life outcomes than those who are not self-determined.
Thank you, Ben. I like that.
Thank
So,
you.
I appreciate you coming on today, talking about self-determination and the work that you've done. In this interview I've done with Ben, we talked about self-determination and how self-determination relates to the disability rights movement. I want to thank you, Ben Edwards, and I appreciate learning from you, and I will contact you for some more interviews.
Oh, well, thank you. Then thanks for having me. It was such a joy to be on here. And
Yes,
yeah,
thank you very much.
my pleasure. Thank you.